So yesterday we ended with the aspects that we have to learn on with regard to Chovot Halevavos as opposed to Chovot Haguf. And we gave examples of Chovot Halevavos in the prescriptive mitzvot, which are things that Jews must do, which is to believe in the creator of the universe, which is God, to accept that God is one, and to serve him, and to love him, trust him, submit to him, fear him, want to do his will, that we should focus our actions toward to fulfill what Hashem wants. So I'm turning this off so it doesn't bother us while here we go. And so that was yesterday. Now, there are also commandments that are prohibitive. Prohibitives are things that we're not allowed to do. So, for example, with Chovos Halevavos, that we are not allowed to lachmod. Do you know what lachmod means? To covet. To desire other people's stuff. It's very important. We have a mitzvah of lo taseh, of not to seek vengeance against another Jew, Moses. You just got to let it go. Don't make a big deal out of it. You're going to let it go and forgive him? Good. Baruch Hashem. And not holding a grudge. Don't hold a grudge. Now, what's a grudge? So, for example, this is an example that I have. That I had a neighbor that he had a riding lawnmower. Okay? And he's mowing the lawns in, big lawns in Nebraska, in Omaha, they're big lawns. And I was mowing my lawn, but my lawnmower broke. And so now I was stuck. And I remember that my wife needed to give birth, and I didn't have time. I couldn't. It's like, it's either today that I cut the lawn or not. And he's there, he's watching me, and I'm talking to his wife, and he never said, you could take my lawnmower, just cut, or he do it, So I remember driving to Lowe's, buying a new lawnmower, and lived happily ever after. Well, came the winter, I had probably the biggest snowblower in the neighborhood. I could actually use it to open the road so that people could drive. It was that, and he didn't. He had this little one that, and he says, "Can I borrow your snowblower?" So if I wanted to violate the principle, I would say, "No, you didn't lend me your lawnmower. I'm not lending you my snowblower." So I said, "Vakasha, go right ahead." And I gave it to him. Now, there's another level, which is that you don't remind him and say, "I'm not like you. You see, you didn't loan it to me, but I'm not like you. I will loan it to you." Then that's still holding a grudge. Gave it to him, and we lived happily ever after. So you're not allowed to hold grudges or seek vengeance. Oh, you did this to me? I'm going to do that to you. No, that's not a Jewish thing. And therefore, it's a mitzvah, lo ta'aseh, it's prohibitive, and it's a mitzvah of the leiv. It's something that is here, that you have to make sure that you don't violate this principle. We're not allowed to think about doing averos. Laying in bed, thinking, "Ooh, I'm going to go to the house of pork and order the pork special." No. We're not allowed to do that. Now, I gave you the example of pork, but obviously he's talking about different type of averas. I don't want to suggest ideas for you to think about, but I'm sure you could think about what he's talking about. If you need help with that, I will point out to you a few websites so that you can get a clearer picture of what we're talking about. Good, Baruch Hashem, everybody got it. You should not have taiva or the agreement that you agree that you're going to do the sins. Okay? So that the whole point is that our actions are going to fulfill the will of Hashem. So what should I be doing with my body? What should I be doing with my time? What should I be doing with my resources? Fulfill the will of Hashem. What does Hashem want? And when you don't know what Hashem wants, it means that you haven't learned enough Torah. So crack the Torah open and start reading, and you'll see what Hashem wants. Because Hashem tells us what He wants. And you know what He wants? He wants us to live a holy life. The difference between philosophy and Judaism is the goal in philosophy is to reach truth. The goal in Judaism is to reach holiness. We certainly pursue truth, but that's not the ultimate goal. Because there are plenty of people who discover truth but live a very unholy life. The whole purpose of the Torah and what Hashem wants is for us to reach a level of holiness. Just like Yehuda over there. The way, the distance that you guys are sitting from me reminds me of Corona. You know, the people had to 6 feet. Any questions so far? Did you win or lose?
We lost.
Big time. Where's Yosef? He's coming? Tov. So, what Rabbeinu Bachya ibn Pakuda is telling us here is something that is, for us, is a given. But you have to understand that when he wrote this book in the 11th century, nobody thought of this model of dividing the mitzvot between the mitzvot of the body and the mitzvot of the mind. Nobody thought about that this way. Everybody knew that those are the mitzvot. He's not bringing new mitzvahs that people are going, huh? Who would have thunk? Everybody knew that. But he is now making a dichotomy and putting emphasis on the mitzvot of the heart, which is the mind. And then he says, and since the chokhmat mitzvot in the Torah follows into two groups, those that are galui, that are revealed, plain, obvious, and those that are hidden, I tried to see in the books that are after the Gemara, after the Talmud, to see if they wrote about this stuff. And I realized three things. First, that books that were written were either to explain the Torah and the prophets. Okay, so he's talking about 11th century. So year 10, whatever it is. And he says people were either explaining the words and the topics of the Torah and the book of the prophets, which is what Rabbeinu Saadia did, and or to give us the grammar and the vowels and how we use past tense, future tense, all of that. That is the works of Rabbeinu Yonah ibn Janach, which was one of the earliest grammarians in Hebrew. And also you have the Masoretics, people who were lived in Tveria, who was working on understanding biblical grammar. or they wrote short books on mitzvot, or like what the Rif wrote. Rabbeinu Yitzchak Alfasi, who wrote a commentary on the Gemara. I wouldn't put anything on a Gemara, just by the way, like a pen or something. Siddur is okay. Siddur is okay, but a pen, it's a little odd. So he gives examples of type of books, or that they provided books explaining topics in the Torah as a way of proofs and answer those who reject Judaism. And he gives several books. Most of them are not available to us. He lists 3 books. 2 of them are not available. We don't know. There's fragments of them. But one of them I mentioned is Rabbeinu Saadia Gaon, who wrote a book called Emunot V'Deot. And that's, you can find it, you can read it. It's a very interesting book. The English translation is fairly long. But it's a very, very important book in Jewish philosophy, if you're interested. So he said, I read all these books. I investigated them. And I found that none of them wrote specifically on the chokhmah, or the responsibility of the mind. None of them. And I saw that this, the chokhmat chovot halevavos, the duties of the heart, they did not write a book explaining all its principles. They left it alone. Which means he's finding a new area, a new way of describing our avodas Hashem, the way that we should serve Hashem. And that's very, very interesting. And he said, I wondered, why did they do that? Why didn't anybody before me think about this idea? This is something that we have to talk about a little bit, because there's something very special about this. And it tells me about the midot of the author. He's not coming from the perspective, I know everything, everybody's wrong, and I'm going to tell you what it is. He's coming from a point of, I recognize there's something, I don't understand why they didn't write it. Certainly, if they knew what I know, and they didn't write it, there must be a good reason for them not to write it. That is, he's coming from a humble place. He's giving them the benefit of the doubt. He's not coming, he's saying, I said maybe there's something in this mitzvot that I misunderstood, that maybe we're not really obligated to follow. Maybe there's something wrong with me in my understanding, because nobody wrote about this before. And so he says that maybe we're chayiv to learn this derech hamusar. Sort of ethical teachings, we have to think about these topics and investigate them. But not because it's mamish, a mitzvah or a duty. So maybe it's rishus. And therefore, since we're not going to be judged if we don't follow it, and we're not going to be punished if we ignore these rules, so maybe that's why the previous authors didn't write anything about this. So I continued to study, and I saw that no, that really these are the major principles of Torah observance. Believing in God, in God's unity, love of Hashem, fearing God. Those are, you can't have Judaism without it. Judaism is not just lighting Hanukkah candles. It's not just drinking on Purim. It's not just lighting Shabbos candles. It's also about knowing who Hashem is, loving Hashem, fearing Him, working on our midot, all these wonderful things that he mentioned. That's the essential part of Judaism. Questions? Comments? So people at home who are watching this, like everybody's talking to an empty room. It's not really empty. It's emptier than usual. I'm going to do something about it. Just can't figure out what yet. What? You want me to hit people?
Yeah. That's not how you do in Israel?
No.
Hoodie's sick, Rabbi, by the way. Hoodie's sick.
Yeah?
Just,
Before Shlema to him.
I have a question, though.
You have a question.
I do have a question.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Okay, so loving God and fearing God, they're very common themes in Jewish texts.
It's a mitzvah, deraisa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Good.
So, what happens if you have somebody that's out of balance with that? Like they don't really have a lot of fear, but they love God, but they're or they're terrified, but they don't really have a lot of love for God.
You have to work on it. You have to work on both. Fearing God is very, very important. And loving Hashem is also very important. Bruchim Abayim. Three 3:00. So you're going to have to stay after class and write standards. I will not be late to Rabbi Matalon's class. No, it's okay. As long as but we had the mic. I was worried that I didn't have the mic, but Baruch Hashem. Though somebody told me that they heard the shir with a bad mic, and it said there's fine, there's no problem with the bad mic.
yeah, it's all right.
So
It should be better than all right.
this, yeah. So wait till I do my opera performance. I used to be an opera singer.
No.
Really?
No, are you kidding me? Yes, I was the fat lady. Okay, complaints are going to come in any day. You know, it's like, what is this guy doing? Jay has no idea what he's missing. So, he says, it was clear to me that God made human being connected from a nefesh and a goof. What's a nefesh? Soul. What's a goof? Body. I just want you to participate, that's all.
No, I think about the nefesh thing.
You still stuck in the nefesh?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think a nefesh is if it's not a soul?
It's a nefesh. Nefesh is like the behemoth part, no? Like the body's energy thing.
So you should know that this is written in Arabic. And the word for neshama is nefesh. Nafs. So when they translated, he just wrote nefesh. So in a lot of medieval texts, neshama and nefesh are interchangeable. You're thinking in the Tanya, where there's a distinction, and the Zohar makes that distinction of nefesh and neshama. But you don't have to necessarily get into that specifics at this point. But we are a composite being. We're made up of physicality and nefesh. Some people call it consciousness and body, or mind and body. Have you ever heard of mind and body? So there seems to be two different aspects to us. Okay? So he says, I saw that, and both of them are of the wonderful benefits from our Creator. And one of them is visible. Sorry about your loss. It was a basketball game, and they lost, as usual. Do you play basketball? No. It's okay. Just as long as you don't play that girly sport, we're good.
What girlies?
Soccer.
I play guitar.
What?
I play guitar.
Guitar.
No.
That's not a sport.
Also, it can be. No, I would play until my fingers were bleeding.
It's an art. It's not a sport.
Sport can also be art.
No. Yaakov, Manishma, come on in. Sit over here. If you want to sit over here. You're not in the, no one's going to see you. But we're going to be doing the shidduch spot on the video, so you might want to...
Should I sit beside you then?
Sure, lama lo?
Okay.
You're not threatening me. I'm already married. So I have news
Oh yeah?
based on what we talked about. So I'll fill you in after class.
Sure.
They're not good or bad. It's just news.
Okay.
It's no. So an aspect of who we are is visible, which is called the body. Right? I had to say that, not leave it open, because somebody's going to say, Rabbi, but I see my soul. Like, listen, get off those mushrooms. Get away from that stuff. That's a little too quick. And you, I didn't expect you to. And there's one aspect that is invisible, which is our neshama or our soul. And we see that he says, this is his brilliant idea. We have to serve Hashem in an avodah that is revealed, body, and there's also an avodah that we do with what's hidden within the neshama. So we really have a duty to do both. And he says, things that have to do with the body, which is galui, is prayer. Prayer requires the body. You can't pray without a body. As we saw today in the beautiful mincha that we had, thanks to you, Tzaddik, you did a very good job. Kol hakavod. So now you're not only the only one on the hook. Now there's two, and we're going to make three.
Who's number 3?
Thank you for volunteering.
Number 4, Rabbi.
You're number 4?
Sean Sexton, number 3.
Oh, blame. You can't, there's no shlichus for that. You can't push mizakin la'adam shelo b'fanav when he doesn't want to do it. So, now, Michael also wants to do it. So, you said it the other day. You said, Rabbi, you want me to do it? So,
He's Sephardi, Rabbi.
and what does that mean? He's not Jewish? Well, what does that mean? He's Sephardi.
He says things funny.
He says things funny. Speaking a guy who speaks with an South African accent and nobody understands what he's saying, we're all like, yeah. That's what Hanan couldn't even remember your name. He's like, you okay, what? So he says things funny, okay?
But he says Jeffen when it's Geffen,
Do you say Jeffet?
I don't. My uncle does.
Oh, his uncle does. His uncle isn't here. Have you ever heard of that? Dan, what's going on?
Pronunciation of Rabbi Gavin's pronunciation.
Rabbi Geffen?
Yeah, the last name.
Jeffen.
Yeah,
Rabbi
like- Geffen.
Yes. Have you ever heard of this pronunciation of a ja when you have a gimel?
No, not really.
You didn't. It's,
Yeah.
Did you read Sadia Gaon's Perush on it? He complains about it in one of his books.
of course.
Yeah, he's
Why
like-
wouldn't he complain?
He says that it was a feature of the Jews of northern Israel, and it was because they were less educated or something, and so he gets very angry about it.
Azerbaijan in Hebrew apparently is.
What?
It's very old thing. It's very, very old.
Azerbaijan in Hebrew is the gimel as a.
Yeah, no, but that was because we put a chupchik in it.
Azerbaijan.
I don't know what you're
Chupchik? I'll show you later. That sounds bad, right? Or to see the chupchik. Chupchik is an apostrophe over a letter. So in modern Hebrew, on tzaddik you add a chupchik to make a ch sound, like Churchill. Or if you want to make a J sound on a gimel, you put a chupchik.
Yes.
So, but in Judeo-Arabic, the chupchik means something else.
Used to be a dot over the letter, right?
Seder, but sometimes when they sometimes do chupchiks. So tefillah. We think of tefillah as avodah of the nefesh, but really tefillah is the avodah of the guf, of the body, because you're required to speak it. In speech, you need a body. Second, Fasting. Fasting is an avodah with a goof. Giving tzedakah is with a goof. You can't give tzedakah with your nefesh. You actually need to put your hand in your pocket, take out some money, and put it in the pushki. Right, Dan? Limud Torah. Limud Torah is done with the body. You can't learn Torah with the neshama. You need your eyes. Sometimes you need your ears. Right? Otherwise, you're reading a word that you think it means hashda when it's hasadeh. Right? Because you didn't read it right. You didn't hear the Rabbi right. It requires the body. You cannot learn Torah without a body. Lasot sukkah obviously requires a body. Lulav requires a body, right? Can you shake your lulav with your neshama? No. Tzitzit. Can you mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzit with a nefesh? No. It requires, you require a body. Mezuzah. Can you put a mezuzah with your nefesh? No, you have to have a goof. Ma'akeh. A railing. All of these examples. And he says you learn this through the human senses. But there's an avodah that is chovat halevavos, that has nothing to do with the body. Believing that God is one in our hearts and believing in God and in His Torah. That does not require a body. That is, you could be sitting, laying down, you could be, it's your mind, you're thinking about it. You're doing it with your mind. And fearing Him, submit to Him, love Him, all those things, willing to give up our lives to Him. That is a decision made in the mind first. Stay away from anything that God hates. Always see the wonderful good things that Hashem is doing for us. That requires avodah of the heart. And he's telling us it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to always be grateful to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I do this often. I take time and start thanking Hashem for everything that I've been able to do or that He's giving me, starting from the time I open my eyes. So I go through, I say, okay, Hashem, you opened my eyes, I was able to get out of bed. Thank you. Hashem, thank you, I had a comfy bed with a really comfortable pillow. You have a good bed with a pillow? Oh, it's unbelievable. And especially now that it's cool, you leave the window open, you have cold air coming in, and you got a nice warm blanket. Oh, that's... Right, and you get a good night's sleep, you wake up in the morning, you have good positive energy. You have to thank Hashem for that. And the fact that I have a talis and tzitzis to wear, right, and tefillin, and I have a minyan that is very close to my house with convenient hours, and it moves right along. It's not like too long. It's not too fast. I went once to a place where they had chai minyan. You know what a chai minyan is? 18 minutes, shachris. Start to finish. You sneeze, they're at Aleinu. You want to wipe your nose, they're done. That's it. Like what? 18 minutes. Then I found a minyan that was a lave minyan. Shachris, 32 minutes. That still was too fast for me. 32 minutes is very fast, no? Very fast. I thank Hashem for that. Thank Hashem. I go through every single thing, You should too. Hashem's blessed all of you. for most of you, I know you a little bit, and I know some things about you, and you've got a lot to thank Hashem. And the more grateful you are, the happier person you're going to be. Shmuel, to make $200,000 in 2 years, 3 years, you should be.
What about like the bad stuff that happens that like we don't see the direct results?
Tzaddik.
Sometimes we see bad things like relatively or momentarily it's bad, but it ends up being good. But then sometimes it's just like rah.
We spoke about this during breakfast. The avoid of the mitzvah that he's talking about is seeing that whatever is being done to us is letova. Letova doesn't mean tov. Letova is for the good. There is a reason for it, and that is for the good. None of us will be able to live a life without some little bit of pickles here and there. That's human nature. You're going to stub your toe once in a while, right? You're going to step on a piece of Lego in the middle of the night, which is really painful, right? You're going to get your shirt dirty on Shabbos, just, You're going to have, everybody has, I'm giving you silly examples, and there's people who have more serious issues, right? Parnasa, not everybody's a billionaire like Yaakov. Some people have to work for a living very hard, right? He's the CEO, look at him, like Donald Trump of Mechina, look at him. You're fired. So, I think the challenge is to what spin or what interpretation you give when you get lemons. For example, you were dating a girl and she said, I don't want to date him anymore. And you thought, like, this could really be something. I mean, I've known her, we grew up together, she lived next to me, my parents, her parents. And then she's like, no, I don't want to date you. You're weird. So some people take it very, like, man up, come on. But it's a challenge. We all have these challenges. And the goal is to understand, if you have the right emunah, as he's talking about, to first give the Kadosh Baruch Hu the benefit of the doubt. God runs the universe, correct? And whatever he does is for the best. And although we cannot understand his path of why he does what he does, but what he's doing is we have to have emunah and bitachon that whatever he's doing, it's ultimately for the best. There's a statement that I like to say that in the end it's going to be good. So somebody said to me, well, what about in the end it's not going to be good? And I said, it's not going to be the end. Just wait. In the end, it's all going to be good. But we also have to have a proper definition of what good is. If you're only thinking that human existence is good only in this world, and only when there is ultimate physical pleasures, then that model's not going to fit. Because you're going to look at death as, by definition, not good. But we don't think that way. That's not what the Torah presents. Death is simply you move from one type of existence to another. So, okay, you take off this body and you get a spiritual body. Okay. But your existence continues. For better or worse, depending on what you performed in this world. So the avoida here that he's talking about of believing that everything that Hashem does is for our benefit, is for the good, that's a very important mitzvah in our Chovos Halevavos. To work on our heart that we ingrain that in our life. And sometimes you're going to have periods of life it's easier to accept it, and sometimes it's more difficult. That's the human condition. And just if you ever get overwhelmed with, let's say you're getting, hit by one wave and another wave and another wave, chas v'shalom, my strength, where I get my strength, is from the stories of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. When you look at the lives of our patriarchs, okay, these people were the closest people to Hashem to ever walk the planet. None of them had an easy life. None of them. Yitzchak didn't have an easy life. Yaakov didn't have an easy life. Think of Yosef HaTzadik. You think Yosef HaTzadik had an easy life? He gets seduced by his boss's wife. He runs away and he gets thrown in prison for rape that he never committed. And he's in prison for 12 years. Right? That's not Shawshank Redemption. I'm serious. Think about an Egyptian prison 3,000 years ago. You think prison in America is bad now?
COVID.
What?
They have COVID in the prisons.
They have COVID.
There's corona all over the prison.
First of all, thank you. But what does that have to do with anything? That's what... So back then, prisons today are worse because they have COVID?
I'm just saying that's the problems they got. I don't know what they had in the Egyptian prison.
They killed you.
It's much, much worse. It's called a bor. A pit. They would throw people in a bor. Yirmiyahu Novi. Jeremiah the prophet. The king didn't like what he said because he prophesied that the king of Babel is going to destroy the temple. The king threw him in prison. What's prison? Bor. They dug a pit, threw him in there. And in the end, one of the servants of the king convinced the king to let him out. Because he was the Gadol Ador, he was the greatest tzaddik alive. He said, you got to get him out. So the king said, okay, get him out. So they didn't bring ladders. They took rags, put them together, tied them, threw it inside, and they were pulling him, 10 people. Why? Because the people were so weak from starvation, they couldn't pull him out. And he was very weak also. That's what prison was back then. So whenever you think your life is hard, I'm not coming to minimize your life. Chas v'shalom. But for me, when things get difficult, I look at Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Yosef, and even Moshe Rabbeinu. You think Moshe Rabbeinu had an easy life? No way. And so, this is why the book of Bereshis is so important for us in our avodah, in how we serve Hashem. Because the more we focus on the lives of these great tzaddikim, we could see the goodness of that everything that is happening is for our benefit. Everything that's happening ultimately is for our benefit. Maybe to finish with an idea, I told this story many times. I was told this Hasidic story from a rabbi who taught for us, Rabbi Weiner. And Rabbi Weiner told me the following story. And it goes like this. Reb Meilich and his brother Reb Zusha they took a period of time and they lived in what is called Golus, exile, which meant that they vowed not to sleep in the same place more than one night. And so they were just moving around from shtetl to shtetl, from whatever, and growing in their service to Hashem. They end up in some town that they looked them as vagrants and threw them in jail. So, in the morning, Reb Meilich wakes up and starts crying. So his brother Rav Zusha says, why are you crying? He says, every morning I wake up and I daven Nate with talis and tefillin to serve Hashem. But now, since I'm in this prison, I cannot serve Hashem with a talis and tefillin and daven shachris because there's a bucket of human waste in the room. And because of this, I can't serve Hashem. And he started crying. His brother said to him, you got it all wrong. So he said, what do you mean? He says, who put the bucket here? He says, the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He says, the whole point of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, that he wants you to serve him now with this bucket in this room. That is your avodas Hashem. Okay, yeah, you cannot put talis and tefillin. But fine. But you could still, there's some things you can do. And that's what you need to do. So he got all excited. He started dancing. And he's waking up the other Goyish prisoners and he wants them to dance. And they were like, what are we dancing? It's because this part of, human waste. It's unbelievable. So there's all this ruckus in the morning, early in the morning. And then the guards come and he says, what's going on? What's all the noise? And they're like, I don't know. This guy's dancing because his God is connected to this waste, this bucket. So his God is happy with a bucket. I don't know. This guy's dancing. So he goes, open the door. They open the door. They take the bucket out. And Rav Zusha says to him, Meilich, put on your talis and tefillin. Which means that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one that creates the situations for us to serve him. So sometimes if we have a lack of money, or difficulty fighting shidduch, or we're lonely, or our hair falls out, I don't know, whatever example is, whatever is bothering you, it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem wants you to serve him just like you would at any other time. And that's really the goal for us, to serve Hashem. This is what he's talking about. That we work with our mind. That our goal is to serve Hashem in whatever situation we're in. If the situation is that we cannot put on talis and tefillin because there's, human waste, then okay. Then we're not going to serve Hashem with talis and tefillin, but we could serve Hashem in other ways. And that's really the ultimate goal that gives me a lot of focus in my avodas Hashem. And when things get tough, I think about the story of Rav Meilich, and it makes it a little easier to show that, there's a reason why I don't have whatever it is. It's because Hashem doesn't want me right now to have it, because he says, I want you to serve me even without it. And we should be happy with whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll continue mañana.